let's start with another topic from our chapter. It is identifying classes and objects. As the topic's name or title suggests itself, it is the concept that will help us in identifying classes and objects that will help us to build real world model. Real world model is that for which we are performing software development. When we look around this problem of a software application, the object may be more difficult to comprehend. That is what we people or the people for works in the development look for. We can identify objects by examining the problem statement given for the software with performing grammatical parsing. Here the term grammatical parsing is nothing but the way to use the given noun and the pronoun as mentioned by the stakeholder or the end user of the system who have given us the problem statement. Objects are determined by underlining each noun or noun clause and entering it in a simple table. Also, synonym should be noted given in the problem statement. If the object is required to implement a solution, then it is a part of the solution phase. Now, the term solution phase in this sentence is nothing but the requirement given by the end user who is going to use the system. We'll see how that object can be identified. Objects can be external entities like other system or other devices or people who going to work for it or going to work on it. Object can be things like reports, displays, letters, signals. This object can be collected or identified in the form of occurrences or events like property transfer of an or the completion of a series of robot movements and so on. Objects can be identified in the form of roles like manager, engineer, salespersons. The object can be organizational units like division, group, team, or it could be places like manufacturing floor or loading dock, or we can say object can be structures like sensors, four-wheel vehicle or computers. So these are the ways from which we can identify objects as well as classes. In identifying process, the analysis starts with the identification of a set of conceptual class, the categories of things which have significance in the system domain. A good understanding of the system domain is important when it comes in identifying the classes. We can say a class is a model of things that represents a category of real world entities from the system domain. To explain this statement, we'll give an example. If somebody come to us stating that he wants or she wants some kind of software or application, at that time we have to look out for the real world entities from that requirement. That requirement is nothing but the system domain to us, and to represent that real entity we have to perform the identifying process in the form of whether it is a thing or part of the model. Although this may be tangible real world things, they may also be intangible things such as events, roles, and organizational units. In the given statement, the word tangible means the thing to which we can touch, and intangible things are those things which we cannot touch, like events, roles, or units. The software developer often gains this through discussion with the user. This is why we always start with the requirement analysis. If we are going to look out the appropriate classes, then we will get the near about or exact required software But when we are going to follow or choose or identify any appropriate classes, at that time we may face complexity in the latter phases of the development, and we may find it difficult to maintain that software in the future. Now on the screen you can see a picture. Now we can see there is a class animal which is having the real world entity, or which is showing the real world entity that below. Okay. Then there is another class luggage or carry on luggage, which is nothing but the representation of real world entities like calculator or Henry's notebook. Okay. Another real world entity are Imgard and Mark, which are nothing but maintained or identified in the form of class passenger. I hope this picture will clear your concept regarding identifying classes and object. After identifying classes and object, the another task or the analysis phase is we have to specify the attribute. Now see, when we end up with identifying classes and object, at that time there is a need to identify the attribute for the classes, and to identify the attribute we have to specify what kind of attribute will be used in that classes. Attribute describe an object that has been selected for inclusion in the analysis model. It is the attributes that defines the object, clarifying what is meant by the object in the context of the domain. This statement can be explained with the help of example, like if an object is there of the class student, then what kind of student is that is can be identified or can be clarified by looking towards the attribute value for that object. To specify a meaningful set of attributes for an object, the analyst can study the requirement for the problem and select those things that are reasonably belong to the object. This is what we analysts have to perform the requirement analysis study again and again, so that we can select those reasonable information which is must be there that belongs to the object. In addition, it must be answered of the question what data items define this object in the context of the problem. This is the most important question that we have to answer while performing specifying attribute process. An attribute holds that information which is useful for the object when it comes the object oriented paradigm. Now we are at the phase defining operations. When it comes to define the operations, we have to define the behavior of an object and change the object's attribute in some way. Specifically, an operations changes one or more attribute values that are contained within the object, and therefore an operation must have knowledge of the nature of the object's attribute. To summarize first three statements, I will say when a object is used to access a method that works with multiple attributes, that objects solely or will say alonely handles those attribute and the value associated to that attribute. We have to define the operation like that. The operation must be implemented in a manner that enables to manipulate the data structure that have been derived from the attribute. And that is what the manipulation with the help of operation should be implemented there. Although many different types of operations exist, They are generally divided into three broad categories. The first category is of the operation that manipulate the data in some way, like addition, deletion, reformatting, or updating and selecting, like the computation on real values. And there are some operations that monitor an object for the occurrence of a controlling event. Here, the controlling event might be a condition based program or might be a trigger based activity. Now, after defining the operation, there is a need to finalize the object definition. The definition of operation is the last step in completing the specification of an object. Operations were picked from a grammatical pass of the processing narrative for the system. Additionally, operations may be determined by considering the life history of an object and the message that are passed among objects defined for the system. Fine. The generic life history of an object can be defined by recognizing that the object must be created or modified or manipulated, or it should be read in other ways and possibly deleted. This is generally what object life cycle goes through. An object starts with its creation, then some kind of manipulation or modification, and at the end it must be get deleted. So this is what at the end of finalizing the object definition. This was the last point of our chapter number 1, object oriented concept. Thank you for your kind attention. I hope you have got what I have tried to teach you through this kind of learning process. I am waiting for your question, your problem, your doubts regarding the whole chapter. You can share your point, your concern, your doubt on my email ID as mentioned on the screen, or through WhatsApp or by calling on my number given on the screen. Now I am taking break. We'll continue with the next lecture for next chapter of our syllabus. Stay home, stay safe. Have a good day ahead.